All right, assisted living fans, we are talking the season 2 premiere, which aired last night on BET. Season 2, episode 1, entitled Bail Buns. And oh boy, yeah, this was a trip. Before going forward in the video, make sure you take a moment to hit that like button to show you like the video. I'd really appreciate that. Hit subscribe. Hit that bell notification icon and select all. That way you don't miss out whenever I post new content on the channel. And follow me on my social media platforms. Links are in the description box below. Similar to House of Pain, yeah, some different people were behind the camera and the pen for writing the script. Mark Swinton, the same guy who directed the, excuse me, let me double check that. The same guy who directed House of Pain this week also directed this episode of Assisted Living, and this one was written by Crystal Garrett. So, yeah, I mean, I thought this was a very good episode. Now, was it as good as House of Pain? I would say no, but I do feel like this episode, it started off the season better than the beginning of season 1. I think this episode was a stronger season premiere than Assisted Living season 1 episode 1. I'm going to give it a decent solid 8 out of 10 because I'm curious for what's in store. You know, I was thinking maybe a 7, but I think this episode did a good job of utilizing all of the characters. And because of that, I feel like it is deserving of an 8 instead of a 7. So, yeah, that's a good way to put it. So we start off the episode with Brown praying for Jeremy in jail. And Vinny comes in and they have some back and forth banter. It's like, don't shoot, Black Lives Matter. When Vinny's talking about his time in jail for conjugal visits with a female police officer who thought he had a quote unquote concealed weapon. So Philip comes in and he hears the news about his dad. And let me just say this much. When I was watching the episode, was it just me or did it seem like both Philip and Sandra seem a bit older? I mean, obviously in real life, you know, they're actors' age, but it just felt like, wow, it's like these kids feel more like adults than they did last season. It's weird, but I think that's why this episode was good because remember, one of my biggest gripes about season 1 is like, why is Philip even here? The character, not the actor. Well, technically the actor who plays the character, but I kept saying, Philip just feels like such a waste of space that even he knows that anytime his parents come into the bedroom to talk, every time his parents come into the bedroom and he and Sandra, that he already knows, yeah, I know the drill. Let me leave so you can talk to my sister alone. And it's just like he just lounges around. But this episode, he was really proactive. And I'm like, okay, all right. Now, this is some good stuff. Let's see where this goes. So he figures out about his dad being out in jail. Leah and Cora come back and say that it could be up to 10 years for Jeremy to be behind bars because apparently this sheriff has a record of wrongful arrest. And Vinny demands action in order to get Jeremy out. They're talking about protesting, coming up with slogans, starting a hashtag campaign in order to get him out. And we go over to Sandra because Leah's like, wow, your sister's been asleep for a long time. Go check on her, Philip, and see if, you can do something online. So he goes in moments after we find out Lindor is sneaking through the window because it's very strange to think about because towards the end of last season, it just seemed like, Sandra wasn't that into Lindor. And of course, they find out about how his father abuses him and whatnot. So now it was a situation where it felt like completely different dynamic between the two. But kind of like on House of Pain, I'm like, it's believable. I get it. It's like during the hiatus, they looked at season 1, things that worked, things that didn't, and they, changed accordingly. So I will accept that there was some off-screen development between these two. Yes, I said it. Off-screen development. I'm actually going to accept that. So they plan on actually driving off together because of, Lindor's overbearing father and the fact that they, I don't want to say are in love, but they're feeling each other. enough said. So Philip comes in and asks why you've been asleep so long. And, oh, I've been packing. Not to drive off into the sunset, but to donate stuff to charity. So they have some back and forth about, coming up with a plan to get Jeremy out of jail. And of course, the common trope in these situations of a person hiding in a room and the person who isn't supposed to know they're there has their back turned the entire time. And, Sandra is trying to be agreeable in order to get Philip out of the room. And then Lindor gets so worked up by Jeremy's motivated speech. And he's like, yeah. And it's like, oh, yeah. Sandra's like, yeah. And it's like, so they leave the room and she's like, shut up, stay hidden. And she kept saying, get down. So this was a cheesy but funny scene in its own right. Yes, I like it because yet again, the fact that, holy crap, Philip is doing something makes this scene work. All right, so they go over to the living area. It's like everybody has the protest signs. They come up with the slogans. Vinny said he's not going. He got gas. Mr. Brown has like a cart full of random things to go to the pawn shop, get bail money in the event that this doesn't work. And I think, I said it before and I'll say it again. Character utilization. Nobody was just sitting around saying unfunny jokes for the sake of saying unfunny jokes. Everybody served a purpose. Everybody felt like they were involved in getting Jeremy out. Everybody felt like, yes, this actually is a serious situation. And while maybe one or two jokes would be written into a scene, it didn't, I guess you could say, overshadow the seriousness of the situation. Just like House of Pain, this episode had a decent pacing. Just like House of Pain, this episode did a good job with the pacing. It felt like no scenes were dragged out longer than they had to be. You could argue that the Sandra and Philip scene where Lindor was hiding in the room was dragged out. But again, it was for the sake of comedy and it gave the kids something to do. So I'm not mad about that. And when they're heading down to the jail, Sandra has been displaying some weird behavior. Leah tells Brown to keep an eye on Sandra because she's walking out the kitchen with a handful of food. And, I'm like, oh God, are they going to think she's pregnant? Because, the whole Lindor situation of him not being fed at home. What if she's sneaking all that food into the room? That way she can give it to Lindor to eat and whatnot. But later on, we figure out, no, I think she's packing the bags with the food. That way they got food on the road. But they actually look at something pretty interesting. In just a moment, I'll get to that. Because Brown stops Sandra to ask her what's going on. Because he hints at her being pregnant. And is like, do you like Virginia? Oh yeah, I went there for a retreat once. It's nice. As somebody who lives in Virginia, I appreciate the shout out. VA! So from there, we go over to Vinny online. Because at first glance, going back to what I said before, everybody's playing a part. And it's like, well, Jeremy, Vinny's not going because he said he has gas. Well, look at this. He's actually spending time online trying to find out some dirt on the sheriff because what Leah said about him making, unlawful arrest. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if Vinny has some contacts online who possibly got into some trouble with the sheriff. So maybe they can tell their story and then use that against the sheriff to get Jeremy out. But no, he's finding some dirt. And Officer Blue Balls, he's a male stripper. When I tell you, I'm like, wait, what? What's going on? Honestly, in context, I should have figured something like that out. I think in my initial video when I talked about the premiere synopsis, I was like, bail buns. The whole thing about having some dirt and a secret that the sheriff has. I'm thinking, what is he, gay? Is he escort? I was kind of on this. If I would have kept thinking about it, I could have come up with stripper, but oh well. So turns out the protest actually failed, and the sheriff said if they didn't leave the vicinity that Leah would be arrested. So Brown and Vinny take a moment to show everybody the stripper stuff, and Philip goes to check on his sister. Apparently, the plan for Lindor was to leave on his own and go stay with his aunt in order to get away from his dad. And Philip actually walks in as the two are about to kiss, and in the midst of the situation, because Philip is like, wait, you talking, why Crazy doesn't fall too far from the tree. Why you want to introduce Crazy to his family? It's like, while he's grilling Philip while he's sitting right there, he gets up and say, hey, your Ding Dong campaign, which Ding Dong campaign, I guess, is this universe's way of having a TikTok format, a TikTok a TikTok stand-in. That way they don't have to pay for copyright for saying TikTok. So they have over 9,000 followers on there. Okay, not to sound jealous, but it's like, remember last season when Mr. Brown, who only had like 2 followers on whatever platform he used, did that video about the living facility and it went viral? And here I am with almost 200,000 subscribers and I can't go viral to save my life. Yeah, I feel a little bitter. But in any case, their movement actually was making waves online, and I think that's pretty cool. So we go over to if I'm not mistaken, I think there was even a protest sign that Philip was holding that said Black Lives Matter. All right, so we go over to the plan because Philip brings up the fact that Lindor's dad is a stripper. Basically, we got some dirt on him, and Lindor's like, oh yeah, I got some dirt on him too. Let's use it in order to get your dad out of jail. So in the living room, they got the stripper pole. They got the whip and holster. They got strobe light. Vinny got the cash. There's some music. And the thing that got me, Cora, who has a bowl of meatballs fresh out of the oven, and they're dyed blue to match Officer Blue Balls. What the hell? All right. So the sheriff arrives because apparently the plan was for somebody to call the sheriff to say that Lindor was at the facility. And he even threatened to say if Lindor doesn't come out in 2 minutes, I'm going to put even more charges on Jeremy in order to make sure he doesn't even get bail. So they pretty much call him out for being a stripper. They start the music. They turn off the lights. Vinny starts throwing the cash. And this man takes off his shirt, rips it, gets on the pole. And I think like Brown, Lindor, everybody's recording it. So when he sees his son, he grabs his phone and threatens to, well, I know you ain't going to use this against me. It's like, oh, you can take my phone. Everybody here got it. So Lindor stands up to his dad like, no, what you're going to do is you're going to get Jeremy out of jail and you're going to allow these good people to have their permit to run the facility. So Officer Blue Balls walks out there with his tail behind his legs, but he wants to keep the feathers, and he puts some in his ear and they fall out as he walks away. And it turns out that, Jeremy is able to get out of jail. And apparently the sheriff has skipped town, so we probably won't see him anymore. And it's funny because, Lindor, I believe, says he's staying. And then Philip lets it slip. Yeah, great, Sandra. Now you and Lindor don't have to skip town. Skip town. What? No, I don't know what you're talking about. So this was a good start to the season. I mean, I don't have any big complaints. I thought this did a pretty decent job of getting the story moving forward, closing up some storylines from last season. I think something to be said of Lindor standing up to his dad and also saying, wow, so this is why you were always gone late at night when I was growing up and had to fend for myself, having those freak shows and whatnot. So that doesn't really explain why he was abusive towards his son. Like maybe he was ashamed of being a male dancer and maybe he was hard on his son so he wouldn't do the same thing. I don't know. I just wish we had a little more into a possible reconciliation between Lindor and his dad, but I'm not going to complain too much. Like I said with House of Pain, I feel like some things were just thrown out in order to get rid of some things from season 1 in order to make changes for season 2. But other than that, pretty good. Even Jeremy says, wow, that was great. Lindor didn't have to do it. So again, it looks like the family's warming up to him even more. So yeah, that's honestly all I have to say about the episode. This video is probably like half the length of my House of Pain review, but I can't wait to see what happens next week. And as always, once I get my hands on the preview for next week, I'll be sure to do a video on that for this show and House of Pain. If I remember correctly, those usually drop on social media on Thursdays, but who knows, maybe they'll drop later today. But what did you think of Assisted Living season 2 episode 1? Do you want to give it a couple more episodes before you make a judgment? I don't blame you because I was paying close attention to the theme song just to see, okay, there's supposed to be some new characters this season. If they're coming soon, will they be in the opening credits? That wasn't the case, honestly, but who's to say that maybe by the time we get 2 or 3 new characters on the show, they won't update the intro. Even though Assisted Living isn't my favorite show, it definitely has one of the standout opening numbers. So I can't complain about that. So thanks so much for tuning into the video. Make sure you check out my House of Pain review as well. And if you would like to donate to the channel, feel free to do so on PayPal or Cash App. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and I'll talk to you all soon.